for me. Welcome to our Playground Founders series. I'm Allison Braley. If you don't know me, I'm an operating partner here at Playground Global, where I focus on marketing. And so we have a really exciting event planned for you today. But before we get started, look, I know we're all Zoom pros at this point in the pandemic, but just in case, I have a few little housekeeping items I want to share with you. So this fireside chat is being recorded and it will be shared with all of you following the event. Your audio and video are muted. There will be a live Q&A at the end of the fireside chat. Laurie will read the questions for Shellye that you guys submitted in advance. You'll have an opportunity to ask Shellye questions using the Zoom Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen. If you have any questions or Zoom issues, email Sylvia, Sylvia @playground.global. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to Laurie Yoler. Most of you probably already know her, but for those of you who don't, Laurie is a general partner at Playground Global, an original board member at Tesla, current board member for companies like Church & Dwight, Bose, our own Leaf Logistics branch, and she's also your host for today's fireside chat with Shellye. Welcome, Laurie.
Thanks so much, Allison. It is really a pleasure to be hosting this event today and to introduce Shellye Archambeau, author of this fantastic book. Wait, let me see if I can get this on the camera. I'm fading in and out. All right, I'm gonna try. You can see it behind Shellye. Unapologetically Ambitious, Take Risks, Break Barriers, and Create Success on Your Own Terms. She is also, I think I met her when she was an early CEO at MetricStream many, many years ago. And Reid Hoffman, the co-founder and former executive chair of LinkedIn, described her as the woman who pulled off the most incredible Silicon Valley turnaround you've never heard of. She currently sits on the board of Nordstrom, Verizon, Roper Technologies, and Okta, and also advises the Royal Bank of Canada, as well as a number of startups. So please welcome Shellye to the Founder Series. So excited, and I'm hoping most of you got a chance to read part, if not all, of her book, which I found absolutely fabulous. So really excited. And if you have read it and enjoyed it, don't forget to write a review on Amazon and give it to your teams. So let's jump in. You have lots of founders and budding entrepreneurs on and other entrepreneurs and leaders on this call. And in this book, you talk about leaving your comfort zone as a method of growth. You say, throughout life, I found strength in moments when I'm somewhat out of my comfort zone, but standing on a foundation I can trust. What advice can you offer our founders and entrepreneurs about building a company culture that cultivates and rewards this exact type of ambition and professional growth amongst its employees?
So thanks. First of all, thanks for having me, Laurie. It's great to be here. And it was so cool to find out that Playground's colors are red, which is the same color as the book. So we're all in good shape here. With regards to creating that culture that gives the strong foundation upon which people can be comfortable, if you will, taking risks, being uncomfortable, is you really have to create an environment in which people don't feel that a risk or therefore a failure will doom them, or that will then define them. And that can be challenging because, the first gut reaction a lot of times when there's a problem or a failure is you blame somebody. But if you actually do that, what you're training your organization is that, hey, listen, failure is a big problem, so don't fail. Well, as soon as people feel they can't fail, that means they're not taking risks. They're not stretching, they're not pushing forward. So to cultivate that environment, you have to actually highlight the failures in a way that talks about lessons learned, right? So we used to always do this lessons learned piece, which is, okay, this happened, but what was the key lesson? What I used to tell people was, it's okay to fail, just don't fail the same way. If you're failing the same way twice, or 3 times, that's a problem, and that's going to be an issue. But if you're failing a different way each time, okay, all right, as long as we're learning and we're moving forward. But it has to be explicit, because people will assume that failure is a problem unless you are actually explicit in some way. And I don't mean you walk around and tell your team, hey, no problem, you fail, everybody just keep failing. No, that's not what I mean. But it's all about highlighting risks that people take and then the outcomes. Because the risk may have been the right risk. The outcome may not have been the outcome we wanted, but talk about the risk and share about that and say, hey, we didn't get the outcome we wanted, but here are the 3 things we learned, and next time we're going to get it, right? but it really has to come from the leaders in order for that to be something that people will truly manifest.
I love that. Thank you. You also spend a lot of time talking about the common issue that many leaders have, which is wrestling with imposter syndrome. Imposter syndrome is what happens when you start believing what an unjust society says about you. You later add, life isn't fair, but life isn't impossible either. So what are some of the tools you've employed to silence both your own nagging voice at an individual level and also what society tries to tell you at an institutional level? And how do you handle that? And how has it helped you provide better leadership?
So I have to go back and give you a little background on this one. I was raised in an environment in which my parents made it very clear that life wasn't fair. And, you come home as a kid, something happened, right? Somebody did something to you, or you didn't get something that should have been due based upon, quote, what's fair, et cetera. And you come home and you complain, it's not fair. And when what you want is it's not fair. And, parents might come and hold you and say, oh, it's okay, it'll be better next time. No, my parents didn't do that. It's not fair. And they look and say, you're right. It's not fair. Life isn't fair. What? Right? What? Life's not fair. But because I had that background, I wasn't looking for fairness because I knew it's not fair. So, okay. And the next thing was, you can't control what people do to you, and you can't control what they say about you, but you can control how you respond. So don't let them win. And letting them win is when you allow them to control your emotions. You allow them for what they say or what they do to make you feel fill in the blank, inadequate, insecure, right? A failure, right? Not good, whatever it is. Well, as soon as you've let somebody else make you feel that way about yourself, you've let them win. So don't let them win. Now, I share both of those as background because when you think about this whole imposter syndrome piece and all these challenges, that we face, that's imposter syndrome. In case you guys don't know and they can get a chance to read about it, what imposter syndrome is it's basically a little voice in your head that says, you're not as good as they think you are. Just wait till they find out that you don't know enough, right? It's the thing that's telling you what makes you think you can do that job, right? Or don't you dare step forward and volunteer, because what happens, it's that nagging thing that keeps doubting. Well, this nagging thing, it's not real. It's not real. It's like television. Looks real, sounds real, feels real. It's not real. And so if you realize that that's the case and you don't want to let anybody control you, right, and how you feel, then you fight this whole imposter syndrome thing. I've been dealing with it my entire life. Heck, I still do at times, which is ridiculous. And trust me, when it comes up, like Verizon, I went to my first Verizon board meeting. I'd already been a CEO for over a decade. I'd served on public boards for 8 years. I'd done all of this. And I get ready to walk in the meeting and suddenly I feel this little voice again. Why do you think you're going to be able to go toe to toe with the CEO of Walgreens or the CEO of Darden Foods or this, that, and the other, right? What do you know? And it's like, what? Are you kidding me? All right, get over yourself. Come on. So trust me, if I still have it, I'm confident that many of you have had it. Just don't let it define you. And if you can't handle it yourself, if you can't sit there and just set it aside, then at least fake it. That was my number one go-to. Fake it till you make it. Just act like you're confident. Put the shoulders back, head up, walk in like, okay, today I'm a Verizon director and I know what I'm doing. And eventually I will, because eventually we all do. So if you can't convince yourself just to get over it, then just fake your way through it. And if that's still a problem, then employ cheerleaders. All right. Now, cheerleaders. What do I mean by cheerleaders? I mean real cheerleaders. Rah, rah, go Laurie, right? Go Susan, go Sylvia, come on, go Brian, Justin, Pravul, whatever. Go, go, go. It's the people who remind you of all that you've done, of what you've accomplished, of how smart and capable you are when you've forgotten all of that, right? You forgot it all because his voice is telling you, oh no, none of that matters. Well, they're there to remind you that it does and that you can do it. So if you can't do it by yourself, get help. It's okay. We all need help. I've used a ton of help over my career.
Fantastic. Thank you. You also talk a lot about managing your career with goals and milestones. You said the first big lesson I learned about advancing in the corporate world is you can't wait for someone else to hand you an opportunity. You have to manage your own career. What can companies do to empower their hardest working employees? And what are the keys to building a healthy, ambitious company culture?
This is really important because if your employees are all basically just waiting for you or leadership, right, to tell them what to go do next, what to aspire to, what to whatever, there's no way they're going to be as productive and as, driven and learning and all this stuff as much as they need to be than if they were self-motivated and self-driven. So you actually want people to manage their career, right? To figure out what they need to know, what they need to learn, go after things, et cetera, because that will continue the energy, right? The push forward, the growth, all of which are really important. So one, let them know. Let them know they're responsible for their career, right? When you have the conversations and you ask them, so what do you aspire to? What do you want to do next? And you get the wishy-washy, I don't know. Then what you tell them is, go think about it and let me know when you do.
Wow.
Okay. I'm supposed to actually do that, right? So you can absolutely help encourage it because people are looking up to you as the leader. They're looking to take their cue from what you do and how you operate. So you have a whole lot more power than you realize to really inspire and get everyone motivated and driving and working towards something. Because when people are working towards something and they are learning and they're growing, typically I found they are better contributors because they're not just doing what's in front of them, but they're looking for other things, right? That they can impact and they can drive. And in most companies, like everyone I've been part of, there's always more to do than you have people. So you want folks that are proactively reaching out.
Thank you so much. And as a follow on, you've said in the past that the number one job of a leader is to create more leaders. So besides encouraging them to own their own career path, what are some other steps leaders can do to foster more professional growth? And how do they really create leaders?
Yes. And this one, that quote, I wish I could say it's all me, but Bill Campbell was a real inspiration for that. He always said a title makes you a manager, but your people make you a leader. So when you're trying to build more leaders, what you're trying to do is you're trying to help develop others that can truly lead people forward. And why is this important? Well, if you're working hard, you're probably trying to create a business that is sustainable. Well, a business that is sustainable, there's no way there can be one leader. That never works. You need as many leaders as possible so that you can get more and more done. One of the things that I've learned is to look and actually measure as the CEO, right? Or as the leader, how many decisions are you making? Because the higher you get in an organization, the fewer decisions you should make. Now, you're probably thinking, what are you talking about? There's all these things to do. How can I make fewer decisions? The whole idea is to create an environment in which your people are actually making the decisions. You're just agreeing with it, right? Supporting it, doing. If people are coming to you with, here are the 5 options, blah, 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 and you are actually deciding, then those people that are doing all that work, they're not growing, right? Ideally, what you want is that they've done all the work and they come to you with, here's all the work, here are the 5 choices, here's the one we've chosen because blah, 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 and then you get to bless it. You should bless a lot, but you should actually not make decisions. Make as few as possible because you want to push those decisions. You want to push the work, the thought process, the analysis, right? And the confidence that comes with actually making decisions that then get ratified and employed. The more you do that, the more confident people will become. The more confident they become, the more decisions that they will make. And therefore, that's fewer decisions you actually have to make. So you can have the time to actually think about strategy, to actually build relationships outside of your company. All these things that as a leader you should be doing to stay connected with what's going on in the world. And if you're in there making all the decisions, you are not spending enough time outside of yourself. And that's over time, not a good thing.
I think I shared with you one of the big turning points in my career. I started at Sun Microsystems in the early 90s, and I was brought on to figure out Sun was selling engineering workstations to other engineering companies. and wanted to figure out how to go after the commercial market. So I arrived my first week and saw Scott McNeely in the hall and said, so Scott, walk me through. What's the strategy? What's the game plan? What are my goals? And he looked at me and said, if I knew any of that stuff, why the hell did I hire you? And that was so powerful. And it changed the whole trajectory, because I never went above to ask for, what do I do? And I never asked for decisions above me. I just cranked and I made decisions, and I occasionally updated those above me on what I was doing. But it was that incredible leadership that we saw at Sun, where there really was delegation in action, which made it a really great company. So thank you. You also talk about fostering self-determination in the book. You say, I stepped up for challenging opportunities that would coax me out of the shadows. As I grew in my own skin, I discovered over and over again that my potential was greater than what was expected. So what are ways that leaders can help their team realize their full potential and to take risks? You talked a little bit about that at the beginning, but is there anything else that that you want to add here to coax people out of the shadows?
Yeah, one of the things that it just takes a while to realize is if you are actually pushing yourself, you're ambitious and you're growing, then the job you have, you get to the point where you're doing it really well. So you've already moved up, I'll call it the ladder of learning, right? Well, when you move to that next role, that next opportunity, guess what? You're moving to the bottom of the ladder of learning. Is it no wonder that you're feeling inadequate? Is it no wonder that you're feeling concerned? Of course you are. This is normal. Okay. This is normal. So when we talk about how to help people, get out of that comfort zone and the whole bit, help them understand that, right? When they show fear or show reticence, don't take that as a sign of weakness. Don't take that. I'm going to repeat it again. Don't take that as a sign of weakness. So many leaders and managers do. They see somebody that hesitates and whatever. And then what they're thinking is, all right, they're just not ambitious. They're not capable. They put all these judgments on them. And no, it's not the case, right? Many times it's the case that they want to be such a good performer that it's the concern of, oh my God, I don't know very much. Can I really do this job? Can I really perform? Well, you know what? That's the kind of person you want. You want somebody who really cares. So don't be quick to judge when you see that hesitancy. Just peel the onion. Just peel the onion and understand why. Hey, I see that you're hesitating. Help me understand why, right? And if the answer is, well, I'm just not sure I can do the job, right? That's when you say, happens to all of us. And take them through the ladder concept, right? You just rose up the ladder. You're an expert. Yes, you're new again. We do this all the time. That's how you grow. You go up a ladder, jump to the next ladder, right? That's how you go up. If you wait till you get great to the other job, you can be great. You are moving sideways, right? You are not moving up. So it's okay to be uncomfortable, right? I've got your back. Keywords. When they tell you I'm not comfortable, I believe in you. Tell them you believe in them. Otherwise, I wouldn't have offered you the job. You can do this. So part of a leader's job is to be part taskmaster for sure, but also part coach and part add a person and encouragement and supporter, right? It's all those roles together. But one of the reasons we lose out on getting all of the talent that actually exists within our organizations is because we take feedback sometimes at face value and we don't peel the onion to understand why.
Right. Fantastic. And I love the ladder symbolism because yes, you take on a new job, which is very high risk, or a new role within a company, and you've got a big learning curve. And what do you do during that time frame? And understanding that that's normal and part of growing and expanding who you are. I think it's fantastic.
Absolutely. Can I add one more thing to that, Laurie?
Sure.
Also encourage your team members to go find people that have done the job they're getting ready to take, whether it's in your organization or outside of your organization. One of the things I tell people all the time, professionals, I said, listen, it is so rare that you get a job that has never existed before, right? Really rare. So if other people have done the job, why not learn from them as part of your learning process so that you can start at first base and not at home plate? So you can help people do that. When they get a new job and they're showing, say, hey, I learned this. I was at IBM and I took on a job. It was a whole new division. And these were brand new functions. So my group had just put this role in place, but it turned out I was in Pennsylvania. Turned out a group in Maryland had done it like 8 months before. And so my boss, to her credit, she said, listen, there's a guy in Maryland who's actually been doing this for a few months. You ought to go spend time with him. And I was like, that was the best advice. And ever since then, I've always sought out people who have done the job that I've just taken or I'm getting ready to take every time, because you learn so much. So encourage your teams to actually do that.
While you're on that topic of mentorship, I loved what you covered in your book, because as an executive or a founder, often people will randomly come up to you, strangers, saying, will you be my mentor? And I always feel badly because I want to help people, and especially if they're young in their career, but I've never met them. I have no context. And then they want me as a mentor, and I have no idea whether I'd even be a good mentor. So you talk about a different way of finding mentors, which is tied to your last answer. So why don't you go into that a little more?
Absolutely. Let me just share a quick little story on that, just to give you perspective on the aha moment. So I was at IBM at the time, probably about 6 years into my career, and IBM decided they wanted high potential employees to have mentors, and they were going to ask them who they wanted their mentors to be. So I got the call, Shellye, you get to pick a mentor. Who would you like it to be? And I thought about it, and I picked a guy. His name was Roland Harris. He was a couple levels above me. I knew him, and I thought he liked me. So I thought, oh, perfect. I'll pick Roland. Well, several days go by. I get a call. Shellye, it's Roland. Hi, Roland. He says, Shellye, you put me down to be your mentor. Well, yeah, Roland, I thought you liked me. And he says, Shellye, you've got me. Go get somebody else. And I was like, Roland's my mentor? So what I learned in that real short conversation experience was, number one, mentors don't have to be this formal, I'm mentee, you are mentor relationship. They can be informal. So I might have more mentors than I realize. Two, I can have as many as I want. I don't have to have just one. So I took both those things and just put them on steroids. But I learned early, to Laurie's example, because what happens when somebody asks someone like Laurie, will you be your mentor? Your eyes get big, you kind of sit back, you're trying to figure out, how do I get out of this? Because I don't have time, and I don't know if you're even going to be a good mentee, right? All those things. I stopped asking people. I just adopted them. I just started treating people like a mentor. Because what is a mentor? A mentor is someone that you can go to for advice, perspective, et cetera. And so I'd start easy, ask easy, simple questions that didn't take much of an investment on anybody's part. I'd then go take the advice. And then here's the key. Are you listening closely? The key is you have to close the loop. You have to let them know what you did, what worked, was their advice helpful? Because a mentor-mentee relationship, whether it's informal or formal, is a relationship, which means both people have to get something out of it. So if you're just taking advice and you never let people know what happens, you never tell them what's going on, well, you know what? You're just a taker, and nobody wants to work with the taker. So close the loop. And then what happens is they start to feel good, because gosh, it's not hardly taking a minute of my time, and look at all the impact I've had on Shellye. So before you know it, they feel good. And then they start to claim you. Oh, Shellye, yeah, I give her advice from time to time.
Exactly. Love it. You talked about IBM, which was a big company, but you made the shift to running a smaller company. And the challenges in startups are often different than in big companies. And founders are often looking to recruit fabulous leaders from large companies, but at early stage startups. How do folks make the shift? And in your experience, can people really make the shift if they've been wildly successful at a large company with a huge support network? Can they really effectively transition to be a great leader at a startup?
It honestly depends upon the person. We can all go through and name people who have absolutely made that transition, and just as many who have failed miserably, right, at that. So to my way of thinking, it's not so much big company, small company, as it is the person themselves. And the way you interview that and understand it is you look at how adaptable are people, right? Are they learners? Are they people that actually That have pushed through challenges, right? And adversity, right? Things that are different. Do they seek out risk, right? Or not? All of those things are much higher indicators as to whether or not they're going to be successful in a small company versus just the fact they've worked for a big company or not worked for a big company. I was able to make that transition. And, I know a number of people who have been, but I also know a lot of people who have not, because they're just not willing to adapt. So it's that adaptability, flexibility I find to be the highest. And then the second highest is how much of a self-driver are they? And look for examples when you're interviewing. Here's the tip. When you're interviewing, look for examples that are non-business. Look for them to be able to share examples that are non-business, where they've actually adapted to a completely, different environment. And did they enjoy it or not? So all of those things will tell you whether or not they have it in them, right, to pursue and persevere.
Fantastic. What's just an example of a non-business environment where you mean
yeah.
like sports or?
Yeah, honestly, it can be in anything. I'm talking to, let me give you, I'll give you an example. I remember I was once interviewing this person, and I spend by the way, when I interview people, I spend 90% of my time trying to figure out who they are, and only 10% on what they actually do. Because I've found, and this is just an aside, but I found that we tend to hire people for what they know and what they've done, but we fire them for who they are. So I'm just like, you know what? Resume says it, references say it, fine. I'm focusing on who you are. And so therefore I spend a lot of time on who they are, which tends to be outside of the office in terms of who they are and what they've done. So it's finding things like, what do they do for hobbies? Have they always done that? Right? Have they shared something that you used to do that you don't do anymore? Why don't you do it anymore? What have you picked up anything new? If somebody's had the exact same hobbies and exact same interests for the last 20 years, probably not that adaptable. Right?
Wow.
I mean, so there's a number of things that you can do, but honestly, that's a huge, huge learning on my part. Hire for what they know in their experience, but you fire for who they are. So spend time interviewing on who they are.
Wow, love that. Thank you. So one of the first times you and I got to sit down and chat one-on-one, I tossed a interesting question to you. I noticed that you had some fairly fascinating folks on your board of directors and said, Shellye, wow, one of your board members has a fascinating reputation. How on earth do you manage him? So let's talk about managing your board of directors. And I would love to hear your thoughts on that.
Certainly. So the key, and this could be hard, honestly, for new CEOs, but you have to remember that your job is to run the company. Your job is to set the strategy. Your job is to make the decisions. Your board's job is to manage you, not the company. So board members will try to manage the company because they always think they know the company and know what needs to be done better than you. Nobody knows the company better than you. And if they do, you should not be in that job. So remember that and be careful. Don't just take as directives, no matter how strongly, right, opinions are put forward. They are all input. You should consider, you should analyze, you should decide. But at the end of the day, you need to do what you feel comfortable with. And you should absolutely share why. So if the board really believes you ought to step left and you know what, you're going to step right, then share with them, do the work. I mean, listen, understand, do the work. Because trust me, one of the things that board members bring, if you've built a good board, is they actually bring a very broad perspective, which, by the way, they're going to have better than you are. So understand what everybody brings to the table. So when they offer perspective, think about it. Doesn't mean you have to take it, but really think about it. If you're not going to take it, have the courtesy of explaining why, right? Because what they really want to understand is, how do you think? How do you analyze, right? Are we confident in your decision-making ability, whether or not you agree with us? Those are the things that board members really want to know. And that's where they will build confidence in you and or not. So if, they're suggesting things, you're kind of like taking the hand, right? You're not really listening. You're not really analyzing. And then you're doing stuff and stuff's not working out. You're going to have a problem. Okay. So if they are giving you advice, you are listening, you are analyzing, you are choosing to do something different, but you're closing the loop with them on why, and then it doesn't turn out, that is not nearly as bad, because now they know that you thought about it. Okay, you made some wrong assumptions. It's fine. You come back, you say, hey, here were my wrong assumptions. Next time, here's what I do, and you go forward. So you have to have that communications. It needs to be two-way, because a best board CEO relationship is when there's good trust and, frankly, transparency, because you all want the same outcome. Now, that's key. Make sure everybody wants the same outcome. Make sure you're spending time in the boardroom actually talking about the vision for the company and that there's agreement. Because if you don't have agreement on the vision, then frankly, everything else is enormously painful. So get agreement. That is your number one job. The vision, strategy, get agreement on that, and then move forward.
Fantastic. You recently said in one of our phone calls prior to this event that you often hear CEOs talking about how incredibly difficult it is to build a diverse board, but they often don't consider diversity until filling that one last independent board seat. And you also have said that the best time to build board diversity is at the beginning. So talk to us, because boy, how do we find that diverse, independent board member who knows everything about our industry and is going to add tremendous value from day one?
Yes. Yeah, this is definitely, the good news is for a lot of you, as you're building your boards and either beginning to add independence or getting to that point, here's the key. Diversity is so much easier if you start from the beginning, because in the beginning, if you're doing it right, you should have, okay, here are the skills that we need on our board. You should create kind of that skills profile of what you want your board to be.
A matrix.
Right, yeah. Exactly. Right. You create that overall skills matrix. Now that you've got the skills matrix, you've got who knows, 8, 10 skills on there. Odds are, if you start by looking for your first diverse, if I can say my words right, first diverse board member, then they can do any one of the 8. You've got lots of options. And trust me, there are plenty of people out there. What happens though, is people start adding people and filling in that skills matrix. And next thing you know, they've got 3 skills left. They need somebody who basically has polka dots, has lived on the moon, and has whatever. I mean, it ends up so specific that it's like needle in the haystack. And then people complain, gosh, I can't find anybody. Well, of course you can't. You just made the whole thing so narrow, right? So start in the beginning when you've got to do everything, because then you can find candidates that fill up a broad range. Okay, so start early and then fill in the rest. It's so much easier.
Right. And bringing on that independent board member early, they can provide value all the way through the company's growth and become an expert. So I couldn't agree more. You serve on many large public company boards today, but were once a startup selling to large companies. So you have an interesting perspective. What should our startup founders think about the dynamics of selling to large enterprises?
So selling in terms, let me just want to make sure I got it. Selling in terms of selling products?
Yeah, products or services, just that gap. If you've been an entrepreneur, how large enterprises think is very different. And I thought,
yep, absolutely. No, just absolutely. So, and the good news, I've spent a good chunk of my career at different phases and indeed selling to large enterprises. So 2 things. One, you have to realize large enterprises have their own process. And it's all different. So just factor that in as you're building out your timelines, because whatever you think it's going to take longer. So that's 1. 2, it's not just the solution that they are buying. They are also buying your company's reputation. They're also buying something that'll affect their reputation, right, within the organization. And trust me, they're thinking about all of that, not just let me solve my problem. But they're thinking about, okay, is this a company I want to partner with? Is this one that I'm willing to put my name by? Because people are going to look to me if something goes off or awry. And you typically have to get more stakeholders engaged, because companies are larger and more complex. So it's important to understand where the power really lies as you are building your sales campaign. Not only who are the decision makers, but who are the real influencers, because that's a key element as well. And then, don't focus as much on your product. And I know this is going to sound really counterintuitive. And I use product very generally, because a product could be a service, it could be hardware, it could be whatever. But don't spend as much time on your product. You want to spend your time really understanding what the problem is that they are trying to solve, and talking about how you solve the problem with the product or the solution, or et cetera. That's a piece that a lot of companies, especially younger companies, they fail at. They've fallen in love with their product. And so their product is great. And so hey, it's my product, like my baby, right? Look at my baby. My baby's beautiful. It's a perfect baby. I mean, right? So all you want to do is talk about your baby, and nobody can tell you your baby's ugly. Oh no, it's perfect. You just haven't looked at it in the right light. You just haven't seen her when she squints, right? You just haven't. Okay. I mean, all those things. So when we fall in love with our product, we treat it the same way. You hear feedback on your product and you're like, oh no, they just don't know how to use it. Oh no, they just haven't been trained right. Oh no, we have all these, things that we say. Don't fall in love with the product. Fall in love with the market. Fall in love with the problem that you're solving. Because when you fall in love with the market, with your target market, and with the problem that you're solving, then you want to make sure it has everything. You want to make sure that any need, requirement, right, is taken care of. So just flip that switch, and it will really help you approach it better. Because at the end of the day, the large corporates, they want to know that you care about their success, because every decision they make builds their success within the organization. So they're much more concerned about their success as to how they're viewed, right, while the problem is getting solved.
Fantastic points. Thank you. So you spend a lot of time in the book on clarity and goal setting, and you kind of extraordinary in every step in your personal and professional life. There was a goal, there was an action plan, there were metrics.
It's true.
Oh my goodness, you made me feel like a total sloth in comparison. I'm not always clear every day what my goals are. Oh my goodness. So what are the most critical elements in building a great business strategy, and how do you plan for those unforeseen obstacles?
Yeah, really good question. So first, before you get to strategy, you've got to have a clear goal. It's amazing how many people will jump to strategy before they actually have clarity around the goal of what they're trying to accomplish. And that trying to accomplish can be, whether it's a market they're trying to tackle, whether it's a positioning, whether it's thought leadership. I mean, there's all kinds of different goals that you can have, but be clear, set those goals first and then build the strategy, because that gives you the framework to decide whether the strategy is any good, right? So first set your goals, then build the strategy, then determine the metrics that are going to help you know whether or not the strategy is working. Because you want to know as fast as possible if it is either working really, really well, because then you want to double down, or it's not working at all, and so we need to make a change. That's why the metrics are important. The metrics aren't just so that you can report how you are doing to somebody else. No, the metrics are for you, so that you can figure out what levers you need to pull and push and change, as quickly as possible, to be as efficient as possible with the capital that you're using, right? With everything else. Goal, strategy, metrics. Now here's the key part. Notice I didn't say anything about team yet, right? I really believe that the team structure, right, and the elements of the team need to support the strategy. And even if you have a team in place and you are changing strategy, you do need to come back and look to say, is this the right team structure to drive the strategy? So many times companies will adjust strategy and they never touch the team. Well, the team was optimized maybe for something else. Okay. And I don't mean people. I don't mean you have to change out all your people. Sometimes you have to change a person or two, but I'm really talking about how it's designed, how it's structured, who manages what, and who's leading. So many times organizations stay pretty static. They just get bigger. Well, I can tell you right now, if your structure's been the same for more than a couple of years and you're a startup, it's not optimized. Because if you're a startup and it's been a couple of years, you've gone through a lot of change. In some way, fashion, or form, you've gone through change. And I'm sure that strategy has evolved. So make sure you're looking at the structure of the team to see that the strategy can be executed as well as possible, right, with the people and resources you have.
Okay, call out for questions because we have time to start answering questions. I have a ton more questions that I want to ask, but I want to allow others. I have one from Joe, though. People have written about a gender confidence gap, where, as a gross generalization, men will overrule their imposter syndrome voice, even when they probably should be listening, even when they really don't have the skills to do a particular task, whereas women overcorrect in the opposite direction, as you discussed. How can I, as a man, know when I've turned down my imposter syndrome voice too far?
Wow. Okay.
Thank you, Joe. Awesome question.
It is an awesome question. It's the first time I've gotten that question. Okay. So how do you turn it down too far? If you find yourself in situations consistently where you are not able to execute well, I mean, unless you're finding yourself in situations where you're not able to execute well, and I'm using execute as a very general term. So whether it's get that job done, work with the team that you are part of, it could be anything. So execute well. If you find yourself getting to positions where you're not executing well, at least not fast enough, over and over, then you're probably turned it down too low. But that would be that would probably be my metric. If you're able to execute and do everything that you've stepped into, then I would say it's probably at the right level.
Terrific. Another question: what are the qualities one should look for in an independent board member as a CEO of a startup? So a board member for a startup.
Yeah. So you want to make sure that a couple of things. One, that their role on your board is a material commitment on their part. I can't tell you the number of startups that bring independents on, and they might bring somebody that they know, somebody they think has a great reputation, therefore will add to whatever, but the person isn't that committed, and therefore you actually aren't getting a whole lot of value from that person. You want somebody who's actually going to commit to helping you and helping you build a good company. So that's one. Two, you want someone, especially as an independent, because you have a lot of people in the boardroom that's representing investors. So you want someone who actually has knowledge and support from a management perspective, because it brings a good balance, right, to the overall conversation and discussion. Ideally, somebody who cares whether or not you personally are successful or not. And then somebody who brings a set of skills and experiences and or relationships that are helpful in moving the company forward.
Fantastic. Let's see. You talk in the book about the importance of trend setting to improve your chances of success. You say when it comes to reaching your goal, the real skill lies in spotting the strongest current in an organization, in an industry, in the larger economy, and then positioning yourself so it propels you forward. Sail past the opportunities that will lead into the weeds and take the opportunities that will move towards your goals. What advice can you offer companies in the audience on the bleeding edge of technology about creating a new market understanding, or often a new category?
Well, somebody read the book. That's great. So here's the deal. I've actually had that experience a couple times and handled it differently. So when I joined LoudCloud, which was the category that they had established in all their marketing materials, et cetera, that they were in, was the software infrastructure services provider category. Now, has anybody on this call heard of a software infrastructure services provider? No, you haven't. There isn't a category called that. They were trying to create the category. Well, it takes a ton of time and or a whole bunch of money to create a brand new category. So, and then nobody can find you because they don't know what you are. They don't know to look for that. So therefore, when you're trying to get into a new market or do something a new way, try to find the thing that you are closest to, and then claim that you are that plus. Because when you do that, when people do the search, they'll find you because you're called, the XYZ industry, and they know that there's XYZ companies they're looking for, but then you spend all your time on the plus, but here's how we're different. And that becomes your differentiation, et cetera. So be really careful about starting a new category because people have trouble finding you. And this day and time, it's not so much about finding your customers as it is about enabling your customers to find you. So that's one. Then two, like at MetricStream, I told you, we went after we called it comprehensive compliance and risk. There was no market comprehensive compliance and risk. So that's why I said I did it two different ways. Why did I create a new market in this instance and I didn't in LoudCloud's instance? Well, this one, there wasn't really anything close. So what we did was we said, okay, we're going to do compliance and risk, but there is compliance. And there is like quality management. And in many ways, those are also very similar. So we tagged into those and then pivot to, yes, we're that and compliance and risk. And then ultimately GRC, governance, risk, and compliance was evolved. So we got the new category, but it took a long time. I mean, 2004 to 2008, 4 years, all right, which is a lifetime for a startup. So find something that's close to what you're doing, claim to do that, and then explain how you're different so that people can find you.
And then you show up on that magic quadrant that Gartner puts out.
Yeah. There you go.
Another question. What advice do you have for a later career person who still has ambitions, but wants to change direction into a new field? How do I sell my experience, even if it's not exactly in the right field?
So first of all, I would say, don't let, time, age, whatever stop you from doing something you want to do. You have an objective, great. So now you've got your goal. That's the first step. Wonderful. So spend a little time doing some research, back to remember those questions I asked myself. What do I want? What has to be true for that to happen? And then how do I make it true? So go talk to people who are doing what you want to do. Find out from them what their career path was. What were the key skills that made a difference for them? Get all that research and then figure out how what you've done actually relates. Because a lot of times the experience and things that we've done, even if it's in one industry or one category, absolutely does relate to another category. It's just reframing it. So reframe your experience into what they look for in this new category that you're going after.
Fantastic. Let's see. Okay. You also talk about how your challenges are your strength. This is an extremely powerful point that you make in the book. And you say, as a young African-American woman, I was accustomed to earning respect. You later add, being in the minority doesn't have to hold you back. In fact, it can be an advantage. Oh, sorry. I was accustomed to earning respect rather than expecting it. Yes. Being in the minority doesn't have to hold you back. In fact, it can be an advantage. What are some of the hard-won lessons that you had in trying to earn that respect and meeting life's challenges? And I guess the question is, do you have to be an optimistic person, or how do you figure out how to overcome those difficulties?
It probably helps to be an optimist, but I don't know that that's actually required. Overcoming, the challenges. So let me explain what I mean about this whole, your challenges can become your strengths. So the fact that I was a minority female, and especially when I came up, things are a little better now. But when I was coming into the workforce, not only were women expected to act like the men, right? We weren't, there was no like separate ability for us to show any feminine side. We had to dress like the men.
Yeah, so one of the long ties.
Yeah, we had to dress like men. We literally had pinstripe suits. They were skirts though, not pants. Pinstripe suits, right? The cotton blouse and a little silk tie that you could wear as a bow or let it hang down. But I mean, it's literally, we were expected to wear that uniform. And so when you think about it, I learned that acting like the guys, that wasn't working for me. All right. It just flat out wasn't working for me. What worked for me was developing what I later learned was really a servant leadership style, meaning I always approach things where I believe if I can make my team successful, right? If I can help them be successful, then I will be successful. And that style worked very, very well for me. And it turns out that that style translates around the world. And that's when it became a real strength. When I went to work in Japan, and again, I used that same style, but it was amazing how much more effective it was than I'll call it more traditional style about, command and control and all that good stuff. So it became a real strength. Many times when we have to overcome challenges or hurdles, we have to learn different approaches, right? Ways to swerve, etc. Ways to be heard that others don't have to, right? All those things. Well, every time we're learning that, we are actually adding a whole lot more skill and depth to our capabilities, so that when we face something that is different, is new, or is adverse, we have a lot more to pull on than people who have not. And that's when it becomes a strength.
I love that. And while you mentioned swerve, we're all in the midst of a lot of swerving right now.
That's for sure.
So I'm a founder who's set these fabulous goals and strategy, but then we're in lockdown and I can't meet with my teams and new candidates I want to hire and do the reorg I want. And wow, there's a lot of swerving going on. And so I've got my goals, but my strategies aren't going according to plan. How should I be thinking differently right now? Or is this really a different, do I need to think differently in times right now?
Yeah. So in times right now, the answer is yes. But the big advice I have is one of focus. It is so easy when chaos is going on. I don't mean your business. Hopefully your business is not completely chaotic, but the world we're in, the world in which your business is operating, the world in which your employees are trying to operate in, the world in which your clients are operating in is chaos right now. Things are all different. Everything's upside down. It's a mess. And the analogy I'd use is one of a dancer. All right. Well, and many of you may not realize, when a dancer is spinning, all right, well, it doesn't matter, ballerina, whatever, but when they're spinning, you see them make all those twirls and you wonder, why don't they get dizzy? Because they've learned to focus. They pick a focal point and their eyes stay on that focal point. Their body starts to spin and then they whip their eyes around right to that focal point as their body's turning. So as a result, it's like, look, spin, look, spin, look. And even though they're spinning like this, their eyes are doing that, which keeps them centered. We need to do the same thing in business. When the world is chaos, when everything else is chaos, it is even more important that we stay really focused on what's important. All right. So, and then from there, make decisions, refine the strategy, right? Get the right execution. But focus is even more important right now than ever before. So to your point, as you're thinking about, you have your goals, right? So, okay, let's go back and revisit those goals. Let's get back and focus. Are these goals the right goals right now, given what we know? All right. If we have to modify, let's modify. Now the strategy. So strategy we had in place. Now that we have these goals and we're focused, right? What are the key strategies really? And then how do we do? I mean, yes, you need to go back and think through all those things again. But the best thing you can do for your teams and your organization is to drive clarity of focus. A lot of stuff going on, but the more clarity you can give them, honestly, the more and more easily they'll be able to execute for you. The hardest thing is when chaos is happening and at the same time you're doing a whole lot of change and you're not able to drive for people what the center point is. And this is what they see. See my hands going? That's what they see. And the world's already doing this. And oh my God, right?
Absolutely. In the book, you talk about the importance of integrating family and work life and working with your partner to set those realistic goals at home as well. You say, decide what you want, determine what you need, and strategize from there. Talk about everything, share your expectations and plans, and find someone who's on the same page as you. Can you tell us about why communication is so important, and especially today when work and life and family are more integrated than ever before at home? So
listen, Laurie, it is so true. So here's what goes on. A lot of us learn amazing skills in the work front. And then we leave the office, virtual office, whatever. We leave the office and we come home and we forget every single one of them. I'm here to tell you, the same skills that work in the office work at home. And a lot of the same skills that work at home work in the office. I tell people all the time, what's the best experience I had for becoming a successful CEO? Being a mom. Okay. So what am I talking about? Well, it's everything from pick it, setting expectations, right? I loved it when I finally learned this concept. Oh my God, I can set expectations at home just like I do at work. And you know what? It works great. If you have kids, believe it or not, your kids know you work. They know you actually have responsibilities outside of the house. Amazed, I know you are. So because of that, you can actually have the conversation to say, okay, whatever it might be. I talk about basketball. My son played basketball in high school. And what are there, like 10,000 games a season for basketball? I mean, it's like every 3 days is a basketball game. Well, you can't make all those games. So instead of making as many as you can and missing like half and being like this dud because you missed half, have the conversation to say, okay, how many games are there? 50, 40 games? I have no idea. How many games are there? Well, given that I work and I travel, how many games do you think I should make? Have the conversation. And you know what? You'd be surprised. They'll give you more of a benefit of doubt than you would give yourself. But now what you do is you agree on a number. And then whatever that number is, do one more. Now, instead of missing 50 games and being a dud, right? You make 40 games and you are a champ because you only committed 35, right? So, but the same thing exists with, everything in terms of setting expectations. Delegation. We delegate. We learn how to delegate in the office. And then we forget when we get home. Who do we delegate to? Anybody in the household. A kid as young as 5 can take delegation, believe it or not. Okay, these are smart little people. So delegate, split things up. You know what? Your kids at 5 can sort laundry. Why can they sort laundry? They know their colors. Okay. I mean, listen, I'm just telling you, there is more work that can be shared. And right now we have to share all of it because we have more work on our plates than ever. Because many times we can't get the help that we normally get. I mean, all those things. So anyway, those are some things, but yes, use the same skills we use that make us successful in the office, use them at home.
I was very happy to get to meet both of your kids, and I love the story. I was just going to ask you to tell your breakfast story, but I got another question. So
Okay.
You figured out pretty early on what you wanted to do in life, and that allowed you to set goals for the rest of your life. What advice would you give to someone who isn't sure what their goals are?
That's all right. So let me tell you what I say. If you don't know what you want to do, all right, people come all the time. They'll ask me, what should I do? And I say, well, what do you want to do? What's your goal? I don't know. Then what I say is, you know what? It doesn't matter. And I know it sounds really harsh, but here's what I'd really say. I say that just to make a point. What I'd really say is if you're not sure what you want to do, then do something that is in demand. Build some skills that are in demand. It's kind of like when you went to college. You got to pick some of your courses, but a lot of courses were just foundational. You just had to take them. Well, act like you're still in college. So go do things that are in demand because 2 things might happen. One, and by the way, Grit is another good book to read. One, studies show that once you become good at something, you actually like it. So as you take something that's in demand and you start doing it, you may find that you like it. Fabulous. Now you're doing something in demand you like, and you have your career, right? You're off at least turbocharged. You may find out you don't like it, but you know what? If it's a skill that's in demand, you can parlay that skill to a different industry, different company, different geography, right? I mean, you can change things up, but now you have something in demand and at least you're building. So you're moving forward. Just don't do this. I'll try this. Try this. I'll try. No, if you don't know what you want to do, pick something that will bring value to you in the long term, no matter what you choose, which is anything that's in demand.
Fantastic. We have more questions pouring in, but we are at time, and so I want to respect your time. If you haven't finished the book yet, though, do read I love the story about your kids making breakfast when they were 6 and 3.
Yeah.
That was pretty, and eggs and grits, if I recall. Unbelievable. So I found your book so inspiring. and just, it was, and I've had so many comments from folks who've been reading it saying it was just like the warm hug they needed, and such inspiration. And getting to know you, you're always smiling, you're always supplying inspiration to me personally. So thank you for that. And I wanted to thank you so much for doing this. And please, if you haven't finished the book, finish reading it. And if you love it, put a review on Amazon and tell all your friends and order it for your teams.
That's right.
So,
thank you. Thank you so much, Laurie. I so appreciate your having me, and thanks for giving a shout out and a boost, because yes, trying to market a book and create awareness during COVID is hard. So if you liked anything I said, if anything was inspiring, do me a favor, just write a post. Hey, heard Shellye, blah, 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 talked about a book, just do something, tag me. But any little bit of help makes a huge difference. So I appreciate it. Thanks, Laurie.
Thank you so much, Shellye. Thanks to everyone.
And there's Mary J. All right, bye, everybody.
Bye.